Welcome to this edition of Epic Insights with Ovationz. I am your host, Aaron Ellis. You can find out about me at aaronellisofficial.com. Today, I am joined with Phil Ranta. Now, Phil is an 18-year veteran and pioneer of the digital media revolution, working as a pre-YouTube web video producer in 2005. So think about that, pre-YouTube. YouTube is huge these days. Now, he's worked with companies like Mob Crush and Facebook and really helped drive the live streaming and creator-driven media paradigm shift, which is huge, obviously, today. He helped build Studio 71 to one of the largest MCNs, growing the network to over 8 billion monthly views with over 1,000 creators. He's also a comedian, performing in prestigious venues and comedy festivals across America. And for those of you in the know, he's a fellow nobody. So Phil, welcome to the show. I'm honored to have you on. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Most importantly, I'm a fellow nobody. Yes.
There you go. So, those of you in the know, he's a fellow nobody. All right. Well, one of the things I love to hear too, Phil, is what got you into what you're doing and brought you where you are today. So a summary of what led you to, to what you're doing, and what brought you.
Totally.
What had you pioneer this?
I mean, like so many people who enter markets early, it was totally by mistake.
Yeah.
I was a comedian. At that time, MySpace was really big, kind of pre-YouTube. That was like, we saw people like Dane Cook, and they were really blowing up on MySpace. And when I started seeing that Dane Cook was getting tens of thousands of views on videos, sometimes hundreds of thousands of views, I'm like, wait, I'm performing for 20 or 30 people in a room. This seems like a more intelligent way to go. So I just started making content and posting it online. And then also I shot a pilot in 2005 for a TV show, or I thought it would be a TV show at the time, called Party Animals. Actually, Tim Robinson, who's now an Emmy winner, 23-year-old Tim Robinson was the star of it. And it ended up selling to superdeluxe.com at a time when no websites were buying shows, but it was Turner's web outlet. And through that, I just fell in love. There was no money in digital for the next 10 years, but during that time, it was really the love of internet culture and internet video that kept me striving. And then when everything turned around, my career started taking off.
Wow. Very, very cool. So are you still doing comedy?
Not as much anymore. So for a while I was like with the Second City troupe and doing cruise ship shows, and like that's when I was in all the way. Now every once in a while I'll do like a comedic podcast, or I'll do an improv show with some of my old improv friends, but not so much anymore.
Very cool. Very cool. It's interesting though, because we both come from the stage in different ways and onto the digital stage, you could say, right? So there's a rabbit hole I want to go down with you, actually, that has to do with the creator economy and what's going on today, but also what used to go on. Like you talked about MySpace, you talked about the beginning days of this, and then there was a shift from my experience. And let me give you a little bit of context from my vantage point of this. So I have been, as we talked about previously, I've been a musician and songwriter for pretty much my whole adult life, even my young teen days, right? My first credits were when I was 15 years old. So in the last 10 plus years, people who have music royalties like I do, those royalties have dropped 94%.
Right.
And things have drastically shifted. So I always love to give people when I say 94%, like, what does that mean? I'm not necessarily going to give the monetary amounts, although those are usually shocking when I tell people, but a good way to look at it is like back in the day, we would get a nickel a spin on the radio, right? And now you're getting like 0.003 or 0.004 per stream. So a fraction of a we used to get 5 pennies, right? So I have been very passionate about empowering creators. And honestly, when I say creators, I mean anybody who has intellectual property. I mean anybody in the entertainment industry, including athletes, professional athletes, and really spearheading and pioneering a new way of doing business in that entertainment industry. I'm curious on your take and what you've run into and what you're doing potentially, hopefully, to ensure that creators are valued, and they're actually paid for what they do.
Yeah, and absolutely. And my North Star in all of this is I believe in the democratization of media, right? Like there was too many middlemen, too many people taking too many cuts, too many people that were taking creative voices and kind of weeding them out. Like Hollywood's a good example. Even the music industry is a good example, right? If you're too wonky, then oftentimes you won't get that record label contract. Well, now if you're super wonky, maybe you'll blow up on SoundCloud, and then you can start building your own audience. Like, who knows if Billie Eilish would have broken through with such a unique sound if it wasn't for the internet, right? So like, that's my North Star. The bad stuff that comes around with the democratization of media is everyone's a creator and content starts to become more commoditized, right?
Yeah.
So, and that drives prices down. And when so much content is accessible, free, then it starts to become a struggle to figure out how to monetize through the old methods, right? The 5 cents per spin. However, it introduces new ways for creators to make more money. And a lot of that comes with owning your audience in a bigger way than you do through the social platforms, right? Spotify, at the end of the day, owns the audience that is doing the, fraction of a cent per stream. But if you can get them into a Patreon, for example, where they're paying you $5 or $10 a month to have early access to your songs or be able to help you write the next song, suddenly you're taking somebody that monetizes more poorly and actually monetizing them much better because you have that direct access. You've got that tooling. So the struggle for everybody is, how do you cut out as many of the middlemen as possible and get directly to your top fans, and then grow that depth of fandom story? So it's not about having a million followers or getting a bunch of plays, but not having that play be something that's ambient, and instead having it be directed. Like, I want to go to the specific thing and hear just Aaron Ellis and hear just this one song. Suddenly, when you start having that mindset, your monetization goes from poor royalties to astronomically higher than they were before. But it is definitely a mindset shift. It's not easy.
Yeah. You actually are speaking towards what I would say is taking personal responsibility for it, rather than thinking you can just plug in all of a sudden you might become a star as far as notoriety and people who know who you are, but that doesn't, in this day and age, equate to money in your pocket,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to become a lot more proactive and understanding. Now, I'm curious on this piece of the puzzle too, and if you had any experience in this around, don't quote me on the years, but we're talking late 2010, 11, 12-ish, when there were standards bodies that were creating standards for how basically content could be used and how people, the actual user, could monetize and own their content. And then all of a sudden they were all shut down.
Yes.
Do you have any experience on that from that time period?
Yeah. I mean, this is all still very new, right? Like, monetization on YouTube started in 2009, or I think it started in 2007, but they really started expanding the program in 2009. But like, if you think about that, then we're like in a 15-year-old industry, really. And there were so many stumbles along the way, right?
Yeah.
Like, from YouTube being sued by all the major record labels to, all of the TV networks at first wanting to sue and then suddenly becoming partners. And like, it was very, very messy. But part of the reason why it was messy is because it just moved fast, right? It's the Silicon Valley move fast and break stuff. They broke a lot of stuff in the early days. And I think that we're still coming to terms with that. I think that there's always going to be people who care more about fame than money, generally young people, and they have an incredible advantage in this environment because they're going to create for free no matter what, right? So they're going to be able to build that audience and then worry about monetization later. The platforms love those type of people because they're not the ones hammering down their door.
Right.
But then when it comes to ownership, of course, they have to be protective of that, because as soon as you upload to something to YouTube, they have non-exclusive distribution rights of all of your content, and they don't have to pay you a cent, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that there's a lot of us coming to terms with what all of this really means, and you're even seeing it with like the TikTok shutdown, right? Like, are you trading fame for data, and if so, who's got that data, and what are they using it for? We still have to set policy and legislation around this, and even Congress doesn't know what to do with it. So that's a very broad way to answer your question, to say we need smart people like you and smart people like me and smart people like, hopefully, our politicians, to start really taking on these issues that are exceptionally important for the future of not just creativity, but the future of how data moves and money moves in general.
Yeah, 100% agree. Now, do you feel personally that it is, let's first, I speak in possibility and probability. So we'll start with possibility, and then I also have the same question for probability. Do you feel that it is possible to shift this business model? And what I mean by business model, and and let me frame this, I am not villainizing anybody. I don't do that
Okay.
in any way, shape, or form. I've been working with both sides of the table on this, even working with the Screen Actors Guild. I'm literally
Yeah.
working with both sides of the table because I don't
Mhm.
villainize anybody.
Right.
And honestly, just to give a little more runway on that, literally, whether I'm talking to an executive or somebody who's a family office, or somebody's been investing in the entertainment industry for years and has 20,000, 10,000, 100,000 people that
Mhm.
work in their organization, or I'm talking to an artist who has a kid and a wife.
Mhm.
All of them, after they realize I'm not attacking them, get to the point where they say, Aaron, I'm just trying to take care of my own.
Right.
So they're not really trying to be bad. They're not really trying to do something evil. Some of them, like, I don't necessarily agree with what's going on, but I don't know how to change it. I can't just pull a string. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just like this side, like, well, I don't necessarily want to give my music away for free, but I want to get my music out there, right? So,
Right.
like, get people to realize that nobody's really a villain. At the end of the day, there's the objective truth. Here's what's going on. The subjective is the story, right?
Right.
Which they're bad, they're horrible. Oh, they just shouldn't have said yes. They shouldn't have signed the contract, because I've heard all that, right?
Mhm.
But do you feel that it is possible to change the economy of entertainment, literally on how that money flows to where it's more equitable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's already happening, right? And I think that the realization that a lot of creators are coming to is being a creator can make you a millionaire, but you can't be a billionaire until you become an entrepreneur.
Mm,
And you're seeing it with Mr. Beast, right? He launched Feastables, and suddenly he's got a chocolate brand that's going to far surpass the revenue of all of his videos. And
yeah.
Logan Paul and KSI with Prime, right? Multi-billion dollars in sales. And I would even put Liquid Death in that camp, because Liquid Death had a heavily like social media focused marketing strategy and celebrity focused marketing strategy, and now it's the number one water brand in the world. Like, it's multi-billion dollars selling water in a can, right? Which is like the most commoditized thing you can think of. And I
Mhm.
think that what we're learning through that is that at the end of the day, all of these social networks, yes, you can make money from them, but they're marketing channels, right? They're marketing channels to what you really want to do, which is build a fan base that's diehard, who will then transact on things that are more valuable to you than the content itself. And not to say that that content's not valuable, but like, if you're putting something on YouTube, please think of it more as a commercial, less of an asset, right? The class that you sell on Kajabi is an asset. The movie that you have later is an asset. The product that you're launching is an asset. But all of this is really like, yes, you'll make some money, but it's really controlled by YouTube once you upload it to YouTube. So that alone can't be your business if you want to thrive.
I love that you literally, and you said something earlier too that's really aligned with this, is like the people who are just creating to create are, they're going to succeed as far as with fulfillment, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, at the highest levels. And that needs to always be your focus and your foundation. And then you need to understand the arenas you're playing in. If you're going to go play football, you don't run onto the field in the baseball uniform and then complain that you're getting beat up. You
Right.
know what I mean? You understand the
Absolutely.
context. So we could go on and on about that stuff. I appreciate you going down that rabbit hole with me, because it's very
Mhm.
near and dear to my heart and some of the things I'm working on. And when I saw your experience, I'm like, I wonder what his take is on this stuff. So
Mhm.
I'd love to pivot though and hear about what you're doing now. We talked a little bit about what you've been doing. We talked about some of the, what we just shared and stuff. But what are you doing now in the creator space in digital media?
Yeah, I mean, right now, naturally, my position at Nobody Studios, I'm the head of digital media advisory committee. So whenever somebody is pitching for a possible investment or incubation at Nobody Studios, myself and my crack team of digital media experts from all forms, from XR experts to platform experts to digital talent experts, all kind of come and pull it apart and decide whether or not it's viable or what it needs in order to be viable. So that's been incredibly fulfilling, incredibly fun. I love working with new entrepreneurs, especially
Mm,
since so many times in my career I've been a new entrepreneur and wish that I had something like that.
right.
Um, Also working with a lot of companies right now to help refine their go-to-market and digital media strategies, particularly on the marketing side. Some of it's a little product oriented. I'm very passionate about e-commerce right now, so TikTok Shop is a big thing that I'm working a lot with. But also how to do these kind of company builds around these creators, right? It's a brave new world. A lot of creators don't understand what it means to be liquid versus illiquid and what it means to be on a cap table, or even what it means to be the CEO of a company. So being able to shepherd them from I'm a content creator and I have a dream to I'm fulfilling my dream and the content creation is marketing that dream is a very big paradigm shift. And I've loved playing in that space. It is so much fun.
Yeah. You're reminding me, like, a lot of people sometimes ask, like, how have you done what you've done? And I never really realized, I had to, with retrospect looking back and realizing that one of my biggest mentors was Paul Allen. And
Mhm.
I didn't know him as the co-founder of Microsoft. I knew him as a guy who played guitar and had a huge mansion and a yacht that brought all the Seattle musicians over to his house. We jammed.
Right. I love that.
Created the music experience museum, which is now I think the Museum of Pop Culture, but that I played the event stuff like, so that's how I knew him, right? But I started learning these my business acumen very young, just because I was around it, right? And just an example on that too, because we talk about these creators really learning how to monetize and really do things differently. Where when I signed my deal with Warner Brothers, Paul said, "Hey, instead of spending your money in a studio, let's build a studio." And it turns into a business for you. And I did that through his guidance, right? So
Wow.
just things like that, being open to different ways of doing stuff. And I say being open because I was learning from him from 13 years old, but I didn't really start listening for 20 years.
Sure,
So
sure.
actually I could have gotten further down the road. So, but I think that's very important. I honestly, you and I should dive in that a little bit deeper sometime and potentially even
Mhm.
do a whole episode on that for creators, right?
Sure.
So we got a few more minutes left. I love to introduce the personal and the professional. So I'm curious if you could share with me and with the audience who's Phil. Is there family? Is there kids? What do you love to do? What do you do in your spare time? Just who is the person?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 2 kids, 3 years old and 4-year-olds old, so I'm in the thick of it. If my eyes look tired, that's why.
Yeah.
Happily married, living in Los Angeles. Digital media is both my career and my hobby, which may be healthy, may not be healthy, who knows? When I'm not at work during the day, I'm oftentimes kind of like helping people with their businesses in the evenings. And I'm a huge pop culture buff. I love video games, but I've not been playing as much as I wish I could with the kids around. But I'll pick that hobby back up later. And yeah, I mean, I really like just kind of following like the polymath lifestyle. Like I love learning new things, and not to say that I'm a polymath, but I certainly love to kind of pick up a lot of those things. So when things like AI start popping, then suddenly I become singularly obsessed with learning about AI for a few months. And when something else comes out, I love that. So I am a incredibly passion driven person, and especially when it comes to digital topics, I just love it so much.
Yeah. So 3 and 4, boys or girls?
Oldest is a girl, youngest is a boy.
Yeah, my oldest is a girl, youngest is a boy. I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. So
Oh, there we
bigger.
go. I love it.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
get the dadpreneur thing, and I get the shift
Yes.
that honestly the never-ending shift that becomes as they get older. Right when you think you've dialed something in, they change.
Yes, absolutely. I'm feeling it already.
Yeah. Well, in the last minute here, so I would love to hear, and this, if you can do one suggestion that companies, organizations, and these creators that we talked about could focus on to maybe move the needle for themselves or get ahead of the curve in what's rapidly becoming a digital and AI world, right?
Mhm.
What could they focus on? What do they need to do to really move the needle or get in the process of moving that needle in the digital marketplace?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that anyone should do, brand or person, is know where the audience that you want congregates and what they value, right? Like maybe you're one of those people who, you're a person of the internet, and maybe your people are on Reddit, or you are a quick shot entertainer and TikTok is right for you, or maybe you're a wonderful podcaster and Spotify or SoundCloud or Buzzsprout is right for you. But like understanding what your audience is and then what they value and how you can then come in and have your content or your voice add value, that's really the whole game. And I worry that too many people skip that part and just start posting stuff,
Right.
everywhere. And like that's generally a road to failure. If you really just stay focused and really start adding value to the community that wants it, you're going to do great.
Do you, by any chance, have one or two tools or resources that can help people do that? figure out what their audience is, figure out where they should actually be putting their time and energy and money in?
Yeah, I mean the number one thing that you can do is just learn and read a lot. Like go on Tube Filter every day and learn about it. Like listen to the Creator Economy podcasts and really get a feel for the platforms. But also you can go on things like socialblade.com and see what the top viewed videos are and what the top viewed creators are. And like you really have to learn by being immersed in it to a certain extent.
Mhm.
And once you kind of figure out like, oh, this speaks to me and this audience speaks to me, that's when you really dive in and you have to do the nerdy stuff, which is become immersed in the community so you know how to add value.
Right. Totally makes sense. Well, I want to say thank you for being on. There's plenty of things we could continue to go down rabbit holes on. I think I'll actually probably think about this and we'll dial in some very specific 20-minute talks we can do coming
Cool.
episodes coming up. But I want to say thank you for coming and we all appreciate it. And it's been great to get to know you a little bit, Phil.
Thank you, Aaron. Great chatting.
Yeah. Everybody, this has been another episode of Epic Insights with Ovationz. Watch for this episode to come out. And like always, add questions in the comments and whatnot. I'll be there to answer them. I'm sure we'll be able to talk Phil into circling back around to and answering some of those questions because we did cover some topics that probably made you scratch your head a little bit, which I love to do. I love to provoke that curiosity in everyone. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.